regular committee. And we have additions to the agenda, and that would be the slag pile geotechnical report under new business, or no, late items, we decided?
Yeah.
Under late items, yeah. Okay, so a motion to adopt the agenda with that addition to the agenda. Councillor Wires, Councillor Vershagen, all those in favor? Carried. Let's get ourselves back up here. We have a number of sets of minutes. A motion to adopt the special meeting minutes of June 25th. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Smith. All those in favor? And the regular meeting minutes of June 25th. Motion to adopt. Councillor Kendall. Come on, you guys, get on with it. Councillor Doherty. All those in favor? And June 25th primary committee meeting minutes and all those recommendations contained herein. A motion. Councillor Smith, Councillor Doherty, all those in favor. One more. July 9th, special meeting minutes. Motion to adopt. Councillor Doherty, Councillor Smith, all those in favor. Okay. And this brings us down to council reports, and I would ask for a volunteer from one end of the council or the other. Councillor Vershagen takes the bait.
I do take the bait, so I'll be quick. I have no report.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doherty.
I do have reports. Okay. Your Worship, I attended Canada Day, and I had the honor to cut the cake with Councillor Smith and Councillor Bob Kendall. I also was invited to do the opening of Music in the Park. I did a little speech, but I didn't sing. Do it all that. And I was involved with some baseball tournament in town. And on the weekend, I went to the BNX track, where a big amount of people attend up in the airports. It was well attended.
Good.
And we're getting ready for the hockey season 4 weeks now. And the GFI.
You're recruiting people for the 50-50 draw.
Yes, that's right. And that's my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wires.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll begin my report with June 27th, when I attended a meeting in Castlegar of the Columbia River Treaty participants with Councillors Smith and Councillor Kendall. These representatives were from the Government of British Columbia, the Bonneville Power Administration, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We were receiving an update on the Columbia River Treaty, which they do annually, and they held a answer and open question period for local governments for any concerns. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers actually control the Libby Dam levels and reported on the spring and current monitoring that we'll see daily updates to local governments as everyone deals with the rising waters, and of course there is more rain coming. On the return trip with Councillors Smith and Kendall, we spotted a grizzly bear and near the Nancy Green Summit. And the photos I took have been circulated to the Granby Wilderness Society and the Christina Lake Stewardship Society, who I've given permission to use the photos in their bear aware program at the lake. So they were quite impressed with our sighting and the chance that we were able to give the estimated coordinates where we spotted the bear, as they track him. And apparently he's quite popular.
Yeah.
Because he did pose.
He did.
We stuffed it with the tour.
On June 29th, I traveled to Golden with my family to attend the AKB LG bi-monthly executive meeting representing our region. So we're just asking to keep October the 19th open for the association's upcoming workshop which is entitled For Richer or Poorer, Building a Case for Taxation Tools, and this will be held at the St. Eugene Resort in Cranbrook. Of course, this topic is becoming very, very prevalent with all local governments and levels of local communities, where we're seeing consistent downloading from the province and the federal government, but we're not seeing any more money. So this is going to be an opportunity to brainstorm and hear from professionals on the steps that we can take to build a taxation tool to move forward. Part of the discussions, we met with Neil Moth, who is the Columbia Basin Trust CEO and President. He attended the meeting, and he is looking for a CBT collaborative initiative led by others other than CBT in the Columbia Treaty negotiations that are going on right now as part of that. And of course, they've got a Rural BC project under the AKBLG umbrella. So Mr. Moth also alluded to the exclusion of Grand Forks and the boundary from the CBT and the impact that this decision has had on the economic growth over the past 15 years. It was significant to me because I didn't introduce myself or anything, but he spoke directly to it. And so I'm just making a notation that, they are aware that it hasn't had its significant impact over the 15 years where we haven't seen those kind of dollars in our region to move forward with improvements and opportunities for recreational like they see over on the other side. So let's keep our collaboration and our open dialogue with the CBT and regional district. So I had an opportunity. My husband and I decided to stay a couple extra days, along with a couple of other families from that were attending the meeting. And so we were pleasantly surprised with the community of Golden and the opportunities that they showed us and their beautiful new Spirit Square that was built a couple of years back. Going on, July the 5th, I attended the Grand Forks Flying Association meeting. Discussions and plans are underway for the August 26th Grand Forks Airport Awareness and Appreciation Day, including the Alps Pancake Breakfast that will start at 7 a.m. in the morning. There will be static displays, antique cars, and classic cars will be on display. The model airplane flyers will be doing demonstrations, and there'll be food and local vendors. So we're asking the public, and they'll be advertising out there very shortly, to come out and see what's happening at your local airport. So that is on Sunday, August the 26th. July the 9th, I attended a farewell party for former Councillor Joy Davies, who has now relocated to White Rock, BC. I wish Joy well in her new home, and she's very excited to be closer to her grandchildren and to her children and new opportunities that she's engaging in. On July the 16th, 17th, and 18th, I attended the Boundary Restorative Justice mentoring workshops that were held at the Sylvanic Hall, and I received a certificate to work with local youth who are referred to the program through the RCMP to help repair harm caused by conflict and illegal actions. And this is we use a forum and the medicine wheel circle to respect and value all participants who are involved in the healing of the actions of the offender with the victim. And it's all part of a collaboration and an agreement. They do actually sign an agreement to participate. So the Boundary Restorative Justice is actually an umbrella group under the RCMP, so we receive funding and support through the RCMP as well. Citizens on Patrol met on July the 19th, and I've performed a couple of patrol duties in the interim, so there is activity out there. We ask the public to keep aware of more summer traffic, and any vagrant, visions that they see or strange packages or anything like that. There was a knapsack left on Central Avenue. So yes, there is activity out there, so be aware of strangers in your community that may not fit in as regular tourists. Staff Sergeant Jim Harrison hosted an appreciation barbecue for the COP members at his residence on this past Saturday. And we recognized former Councillor Ann Gordon's commitment 4 years ago when she started the organization in our community under her term with City Council, and her invaluable contribution to seeing the program to continuance. And Ann, of course, is not active in our patrols, but we do invite her to the social functions and that now, because she is committed with her husband, who is having some health challenges at this time. So July 22nd, the Boundary Dog Sled Association yesterday held a Family Day fundraiser at Owl Mountain Ranch near Christina Lake, and that was thanks to the generous hospitality of owners Rick and Marie at the ranch. The day included horse rides, petting zoo, and there's these 3 delightful little miniature horses, and one amazing duck named Dora, who actually captivated Area C Director Grace McGregor. I guess Dora had visited the Christina Lake homecoming for the 2 previous days, so Grace showed up to see Dora again. The day was filled with games for the children, a silent auction. There was a hot dog concession with volunteers, vendors, and although the weekend was darkened by the loss of a young boy's life from Christina Lake, when the Pines Bible Camp received the wrath of Friday's horrendous storm, it was well attended, and we thank everyone who came out and the many families. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Your Worship. My report's been basically summarized by Councillor Doherty, where we attended the Canada Day celebrations, and Councillor Weiser, where we attended the Columbia Basin Treaty meeting. And the other thing I'd like to add is I'm happy to see that our new municipal campground signage is in the process of being installed, and hopefully that will direct more tourist traffic off the highways and increase usage of the campground. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. On July 14th, I attended in your stead the Woodlot Licensee Association meeting at George Doors Woodlot, who is currently the association's president. It was a very informative session with talks given by an engineer on bridge building, Tyler Hodgkinson on site prepping and replant spacing, representatives from the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources on logging site cleanup, and a biologist on preserving nesting sites for the Williamson sapsucker and the Lewis woodpecker. The level of stewardship exercised by these licensees is admirable, and several indicated their willingness to assist the city in exploring the possibility of community forest. On the 17th, Mayor Taylor and I attended a meeting with board members of the Boundary Museum Society to discuss the current use of buildings in Gyro Park and the Society's future plans at the Fructova site. With Councillor Kendall as Council's liaison with the BMS back from holidays, we're sure that discussions will continue. The EDAC has completed the request for proposals package for the Grand Forks branding and will open it to proposals from August 1st to August 31st. Select a contractor by mid-September for Council's approval, and have the project completed by December 31st. Due to a number of absences, we have postponed tomorrow's meeting, which was previously scheduled, until August 7th, when we will be welcoming our 2 new members, Sandra Mark and Robert Garrellis. That's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. A couple of items. Again, my condolences at the tragedy that occurred during the storm. A lot of citizens have gone to the trouble of cleaning up around them, whether that's their property or not, and I would like to see us pass a motion here that we would compensate people who indicate that they've been cleaning up public areas. There's, a fellow came into the landfill. He was charged $10 for his load, but none of it was even off his property. So situations like that, I think it would be goodwill to the citizens. If a person doesn't have their receipt, they can get one back from the landfill. If they just know the approximate time that they arrived, they would be able to look it up on the landfill registry. But I think as a gesture of goodwill to the people who got out and cleaned up, particularly those people who cleaned up the public areas. I mean, we're taking people's word for it here, but and I don't think we'll get a flood of people bringing their receipts in, but it would be nice to offer to those that have reached out and cleaned up more than their share. Could I see a motion to that, Councillor?
I'd certainly welcome that motion, Your Worship, and I'll bring that motion forward to the council table at this time, that we reimburse our local citizens who have cleaned up and taken their windstorm debris to the landfill and produce their receipt at City Hall.
And a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wershagen. Discussion? Councillor Kendall.
Is there a time frame on this motion, or is it kind of an open motion? I'm just saying, like, should we say by a certain date, if you've cleaned up and taken your stuff, that's kind of the end of it?
Would you like me to include August the 15th?
Sure.
To give people time for bigger pieces
to not extend it inordinately at this point, but to cut it off August 15th.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? I know it's kind of open-ended in terms of what we expect, but I don't think we're going to be inundated by a whole big expense, but we'll keep track of it and report back from City Hall. Meeting with Border Services. It was a great Canada Day, and on that opportunity to talk about our relationship across the border, I did comment on the fact that we as a community would benefit economically by having a friendlier border. And so I was contacted fairly quickly by the regional and the western representative of Border Services, and they came down and met with me. We looked at some of the complaints, and some of you may have noticed different articles in the local paper, in the Gazette. There have been upset people at the border, and they're very concerned that they get feedback. So it was a positive meeting, and what we discussed were several measures that would allow us to get more feedback from our borders and to recognize both people who are rude and not treating people with respect, and also to recognize the many border service people who treat everyone with respect and really also resent being categorized with some of the bad apples that exist. So there'll be a further report to council on it, and they would like to begin to initiate some kinds of activities that would improve feedback, and they've also promised that they would look at contacting the Americans on the other side and see if we could get a similar initiative going at the border. So it's a good news story. So far, I can still cross. Pretty much everything has been covered here. I'm going to add my regional district issues in here then to a single motion to adopt the council reports, my report, and the regional district report. Going on then, the regional district issues there. I brought up the issue of the animal control contract, that we wanted some input into it. I'm not in a position where I can add cats. There's no appetite for that from the partners. But we will attempt to add the involvement of the animal control officer in being one of the people who could dispatch a deer in a crisis situation where the deer had to be put down. So we had that informal agreement ongoing, but it wasn't written into the contract. But we'll be meeting before the regional district meeting, which is here Thursday at 6 o'clock at the RDKB meeting room is an open RDKB meeting. So the 4 o'clock meeting is just for the stakeholders, so to talk about the animal control. Anything further on the regional district issues? Anyone has? All right, a motion to adopt the council reports and my regional district report. Councillor Doherty, Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moves us down to development variance permit. This is to allow the construction of a garage to be considered closer to the front property line. If we can get this motion on the table.
Yeah, I'll move with that motion.
Councillor Doherty, second. Councillor Kendall.
Your Worship,
Yes.
we do need to provide the public an opportunity to be heard.
Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak to this? Anyone? Seeing none, Councillor Doherty makes the motion to resolve to approve the application for a development variance permit. And it is seconded by Councillor Kendall, I think.
Yes, I did.
Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item of business is a request that we made to our CAO to report on the Gyro Park situation, and council to receive the report, and to also, if this is the appropriate time, talk about some of the discussions that we've had at this point with the with regard to these units and the artifacts that are in them. So can we have the motion from Councillor? Councillor Smith makes the motion.
Motion
to accept the report, or receive the report.
second.
Councillor Doherty, Councillor Marshagan. Open for discussion.
Well, Your
Councillor
Worship,
Smith.
of course, I've been through the EDAC discussing, or just meeting up with the various stakeholders that sort of use or are using the Gyro Park, such as the Farmers Market Society, Boundary Museum, Fire Department with their 29 fire engine in use there, and even the art gallery as a potential site for storing some of their fire engines. And it looks like to me that all those people are willing to sit at the table and discuss how that whole basic center may be, revitalized and become an anchor for opportunity and business in Grand Forks, to kind of shape it up and give it a new face. So I think there's, uncovering these uses and potentials is a really good step towards making that happen.
Okay. In our discussions with the museum folks, it's clear that they would display and store more up at the museum if they had the available space for display and storage. And so the discussion at this point is revolving around putting together an application, putting together financing to go ahead with finding funding to support an expansion, whatever, of the ability of the Boundary Museum to display their artifacts, to store them properly and display them. I mean, those things that are in the current Gyro Park area there are deteriorating. But it'll take a while for the woodworkers and the folks that are working on those to be able to do them one at a time. But we need to get the ball rolling here, and so I'm suggesting at this point that we commit ourselves to moving ahead with planning for the construction of a building up there at the museum site. Now that means finding partnerships. I did today, before the meeting here, speak with Irene about Area D and their involvement in it. She supports this. We didn't talk at all about money or anything, just the fact that this is just a natural direction to go with looking after the artifacts that we share responsibility for, and not allowing them to sit there in open storage and continue to deteriorate when we can concentrate that attractiveness of those artifacts and get some of the thousands of artifacts that people are not willing to bring in because there's no place to store them or to display them. So I think, putting a building up there, looking at showing off our history could be a real improvement for everybody, giving them more drawing power for customers, and giving us the comfort that we've looked after those artifacts properly. Councillor Wires.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is this an opportunity at this time for us to refer it to our fall budget discussions, and in the interim work with the Boundary Museum Society and looking for local funding? And
I think it is. I think we need to give some kind of green light here. In fact, I think the Boundary project of this nature would qualify for a CIIF funding grant, although the time frames I know are only 2 weeks away. There is a second round, I think, in November that might be more appropriate in terms of planning ahead, but it could be a regional district city cooperative venture to expand the facilities there with an appropriate building. Council, if you want to put a motion on the table that would put us in that direction in terms of...
We have a motion
on the table.
We have a motion on the table
Just to receive the report.
to receive the report. All those in favor of receiving the report? Thank you. And so
I'll put a motion.
a motion forward by Councillor Doherty that we proceed in principle with working with the regional district and the museum to plan the additional resources required, something of that nature. I'm not good at motion.
and included in our fall budget discussion.
We would definitely do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have other sources of money if we need it, but in fact, this is a plan that's going to take some time to go forward. So
Yeah.
I think it would be appropriate that it be part of our fall budgeting, whatever.
Budget discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion?
Your Worship, just a point of order. Once it can be read back, I'd be willing to second that motion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I see Diane is just touching it up a bit here.
Your Worship, resolved that the city refer this item to the fall budgeting process and partner in principle with the regional district of Coogee Boundary in a cooperative venture to plan additional resources required to store the artifacts contained in Gyro Park at the Boundary Museum site.
Seconder.
And the Museum Society, just so it's clear that they're included as a stakeholder in this.
And you're seconding that?
And I'll second that.
Further discussion? Councillor Washagan.
Just out of curiosity, it hasn't really been mentioned, it's kind of been alluded to. Is this the will of the Boundary Museum Society to move the artifacts? Is this what they want, to move them from here to there?
Yeah.
You know,
But we're not
their will
steering
is
in
to
that
save
direction?
them. To save them. So they've been very cooperative in looking at moving them, but in fact I think it's seen as a move that will basically save what are deteriorating artifacts.
Yeah.
And to bring more into the
Right.
into the display.
Lawrence, is that fair?
Yes. Okay. It's the only concern I have.
Okay, and the motion is on the table. All those in favor? Both carried. I think this is going to go a long way to having a partnership at the museum. It's going to take us a while to put it together, but there are grants and things out there right now that we need to begin to to look at that. Thank you very much, Council.